I'm Rhona Floate, Rural Field Officer for the Wilts Archdeaconry, but this reflection reflects not only my experience, but I think some of that of my three colleagues in the other archdeaconries, Richard, Margaret and Claire. Well, 3 years ago, hardly anyone knew what a rural field officer was. They'd heard of UFOs, but not RFOs. That's changed as those who inhabit pew, parsonage or Zoom room now seek us out. What for? I suggest that we act like rocket boosters rather than aliens in UFOs. We inhabit the same space as you, prayerfully coming alongside those of you who are willing to branch out, to break out of the current orbit in search of new ways and places in which to share the love of God. We can provide that critical boost of energy, expertise, resources and insights that enables teams to form, to dream and to deliver. It's been translating into new partnerships, new confidence in both lay and ordain, in new forms of worship, whether muddy, messy, gin, whatever. It's seen new worshippers joining familiar forms of worship, new explorers of our faith, and a rich variety of new vocations. Even old dogs, with or without collars, have been learning new tricks. A black hole called COVID opened up, but it turned into a portal to new opportunities. And we've helped you navigate your way through digital landscapes, as well as rediscovering the ancient worship space that is the open air all year round. We've experimented and learned together and pointed you towards wider networks of expertise, helping to equip us all for the many challenges that face the rural church. Emerging into this strange new normal, the gravitational pull of old patterns, old orbits is still strong, but your rural rocket boosters are still here to help you steer those courses that value all that is energizing and fruitful for both inherited and new ways of being Christ's body in this changing universe. And there's still so much more for us to explore together.
Gavin Calver wrote to the Times and on the 29th of January, and he said this, and thanks to Andy Perry, really, who posted this on Twitter. As we emerge into life post-pandemic, it is my belief that the church will be much more of a buffet of many different styles, timings, and possibilities than the previous set menu format. And he's obviously been looking at the menu of the Church of England, because we've obviously been talking about way back. We talked about mixed economies of church, which was something that Rowan Williams coined. But now we've moved from that, which was much more about sort of church growth to arrest decline in church, to a much more organic style of new possibilities of church, called Mixed Ecology. And I want to bring in a few people. We would have seen some of this on the Rural Hope video, but I want to bring in a few friends here that I've picked up over the last few weeks who have been experimenting with new possibilities of church. Before we do that, I just want to share a screenshot on my screen. Can you all see that? Does everybody see that? This is a picture which really expresses what mixed ecology of church is all about. Instead of just one beam of light coming through the prism, it's split into all sorts of a whole range, a whole spectrum, if you like, of possibilities, ranging from, you know, congregational plants, which is just like a traditional method of church, all the way through to non-monastic, neo-monastic communities, ones where it's not about coming to us, it's about us going out to other people. And I hope that over the next few minutes, we should have a few friends, Louise Ellis from Lilliput, Matt Smith from Corfmullen, Tessa Nisbet from Hamworthy, and Adrian Burholt from the Wellsprings team up in Wiltshire, who will share some of their experiences of a mixed ecology of church, of different possibilities of being church in their areas. So I want to first of all bring in Louise. Are you there, Louise?
Could you stop
Yes, I am
on the screen? Thanks.
Okay. So Louise,
yes. Hello.
tell us a little bit about what happened. You started a service called Rise and Shine, which went alongside your existing traditional inherited model of church. And what happened when the pandemic came along?
So Rise and Shine had been meeting for half an hour every week, pre-pandemic, at 9:15. So it was before our communion service. And then when the pandemic came, initially we pre-recorded worship, but we realised pretty quickly that for the families, we needed to be sort of in live contact with them. So we moved Rise and Shine onto Zoom, and actually throughout every week we did a children's service on Zoom for half an hour, and that really grew. We grew lots of families joined us during that period, and it was just half an hour of Bible stories, singing. The children would come with different musical instruments that they'd made at home and so forth. So we did that all the time when we needed to be online. I applied for a COVID grant through the All Churches Trust, I think probably in about August of the first year. We got some money through that, and we bought some fencing that enabled us to use our car park safely for outdoor services. So when we were able to, we moved outside. And again, most of our families continued to come during that. We also used the outside space for toddlers before we were able to go back into the hall. We had outside toddler groups. We ran an ice cream cafe after school during the summer. We did lots of different things. We also had craft bags. We did Messy Easter, and we did bags that people could do at home with a service. So we kept changing really as the picture changed. I carried on doing weekly assemblies in school on Zoom most of the time. Occasionally I was able to go in, but we've carried on Zooming into school every week. When we went back into church, we don't have a very big church building. So initially we had 2 children's services every week back to back, and we called them story times because at the time we couldn't sing, and people had to book into those. Now we are back in church. We still have messy church from time to time. We're trialling a new pattern at the moment because we're
Tell us
now
a little bit about that. What happened to the sort of inherited church?
So
the traditional church, what happened there?
So we found that our communion service, our traditional church, was reducing in number, and our number of families was growing. Gradually, some of our families have become more involved in other parts of church. They joined the PCC, they've got involved in lunch club, volunteering in different ways. But also some of our children had grown up a bit and were a bit too old really for Rise and Shine and needed some other kind of input. So at the moment,
that's become your main service now, hasn't it? Effectively.
Well, so since January, we're trialing a new pattern, and it's very new. So we are all together in church for the first hymn, and then the families and the parents of preschool children all go over to the hall, and we run a sort of parallel Rise and Shine service in the hall. We have probably greater numbers now over in the hall for that part, and then the older children do some kind of Sunday school activity, We also brought hall divides with the grant that we got, so that we can create a space for the younger children, and then they come back in for communion.
Right.
Yeah.
That's brilliant, Louise. Thank you for filling us in on that. I just want to bring in Matt Smith now, if he's there. Matt, are you there? Because one of the themes that seems to be coming up is people were doing, when they were reimagining church during the pandemic, there was a lot of outside church going on. So Matt, I believe you've done quite a bit outside, particularly over the Christmas period.
Yeah, we have. I mean, I'm here with Evie Ford, our children's worker, and Evie and I have started something called Wild Church. And I wouldn't say that that was a reaction to the pandemic. It was more that St Nicholas Church, we were looking for a way of growing a new worshipping community. And we came up with this idea of using our woodland space at the bottom of the car park, which was very overgrown, had become a bit of a dumping ground over the years. And so we bought this huge parachute, which we hung in the trees to create this massive, like, it's a bit like a worshipping canopy almost. And we invited people to come via social media. And we've had lots of families come along. We have a bit of a Bible story time and a time of prayer, a time of quiet. We do craft with them.
So are these church families that have been coming?
No, not just church families. There have been some church families. One really lovely thing is it's enabled some of the people in our church to bring along their grandchildren and to spend time with their grandchildren in the woodland, which has just been so lovely to see, and it's been kind of like a real gift to them, really. But no, we've seen people come from all over, really, and we seem to get a different family arrive each week, which is just lovely.
And Edie, what's it been like for you as children's worker?
So when it was when I started that Matt had this idea, and he had a little mood board of images that was his kind of vision for Wild Church.
Can I show you this?
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, that was a bit of a vision I had when I arrived here. And this image here, that's basically what we've now got down there. And there's this picture of Tom Hanks over on this side with fire coming alive for the first time in Castaway. It's kind of
more Die Hard than Castaway, but there we are.
Yeah. Well, we want to see that spark of faith come alive in people like that.
And it was really important for us that this was a family ministry and that families could come to this and grow together. Because as we all know, quite often children's ministry is kind of separated, but we wanted this to be, and not just parents, we wanted it to be grandparents, and it's been lovely seeing that grow. But I actually come from a teaching background. I'm a trained primary school teacher. And so for me, it was great to be bringing children outdoors, especially in a time like this where we know, I mean, there's loads of statistics about how good being outdoors is for mental health and well-being. And so it was kind of from all angles, from a Christian side of view, a health side of view. It just happened to be a great timing for COVID, to be honest, moving outside. It just fitted together really well.
Fantastic. Can I bring in Tessa Nisbet, because I think you've been doing something, Tessa, in Hamworthy. It's similar to that.
Yeah, we'd been on lockdown, on Zoom most of lockdown, and then last Easter when the restrictions eased and we saw outdoor venues that were opening, we reevaluated what we were going to do. And one of the things I always do is look at, what do I have in my hands? What do we have? And suddenly realized we had this virtually unused, really lovely mowed piece of grass in front of our church. And we thought we'd just give it a go, have an experiment. So we asked people to bring chairs as if they were going, to a festival, to wrap up warm. And it was amazing. We just did very simply, we did church, and it felt a bit every week, a bit like, the feeding of the 5,000, all these people there. We had very little to offer. We had this tiny little sound system that virtually, it was just somebody's secondhand sound system. And, but every week the Lord would feed us with the little we offered him. And we stayed outside for 6 months. We loved it so much. Families loved it because we'd set up some very simple games and activities for the kids. some craft, and families, they would just all be there together, and the kids could run around. It was really safe. And 6 months, and it was only 5 times we had to go make another plan. And we absolutely loved it. We've loved it. As a result, we did our remembrance service outside, and we are planning to do some more Easter outside this year. And also in the summer, we will most definitely be outside again for
Fantastic.
a length of time. We loved it. We loved it.
Brilliant. Thank you. That seems to be a common theme. The outside is good during this pandemic. But I wanted to come and bring in Adrian Burholt from the Wellsprings benefice up in Wiltshire, who's been doing something slightly different. It's about attracting people who don't normally come to church, but in a more, I don't know, is this a more evangelistic way, Adrian?
I think it's a way in which, by the way, it's lovely to be here. Thank you. And I'd like to introduce you actually to Rachel Tempest, who's with me, who's been a really key member of the, a lay member of the team, but really instrumental in kind of shaping what I'm about to share with you. So, and that's really quite important, rather, you know, just let's not do it all clergy led, hey? We don't have all the answers. So no, it was what I think we found was that we'd used the COVID winter, the one before, to do some thinking about our church life, and particularly outreach, particularly kind of alternative forms of worship. We did a questionnaire, got a really strong response to that. People just saying that you're not basically delivering what I need. I need a space I can come and ask questions and feel safe to do that. And then had the most extraordinary time over the sort of the summer when we had that little reprise, didn't we, where we could actually get out and start seeing people, and you know, village fates, baptism meetings with parents. We took a pop-out, the Youth for Christ pop-out cafe out, and whilst the kids were running around, you're talking to the mums and the dads, and they're all kind of going, well, you know, that religion thing, yeah, but I have a faith. I just want to ask questions. Like, where can I go and ask questions? And Alpha's brilliant, but it's quite sort of intentional, and it's quite short, and it's quite focused. And so we basically, you know, together with people like Rachel's help, envisaged a sort of a space which happens to be in a village hall every Saturday afternoon, where people come in and they start off with decent coffee. We pose a kind of question, like this week was, can you love people that hurt you? We then let there be a discussion in groups. We then feed that back. We then provide a Christian perspective, and then we kind of leave. And it's sort of, we've been going 5 weeks. We've got about, you know, regular gathering of 24 people, which is larger than most of our congregation. So you know, it's early days, but
so it's more of an incarnational model rather than an evangelistic model then, in that way. Yeah.
And we have people, it's interesting, we have people of faith there, quite strong faith, but just needing a space to go, I don't understand this, I want to talk about virgin births or whatever, or the Bible and all the, you know, things like that. And we've got people with no faith coming along, which is just extraordinary. And they're all getting on together and sharing, and it's just a bit like the church in the very first century, I suspect.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I think if we think theologically about the mixed ecology, I mean, if you think of inherited traditional churches being like the church in Jerusalem, a lot of what we've heard this morning is a bit like the church in Antioch, where we're going out a bit more, taking the church to the people rather than expecting people to come to us. And I think that's been a real common theme that's been coming through.